This is one thing that we talked about the last couple of days is that, you talk about swagger or confidence and all that kind of stuff. Like, what is it, right? I mean, it's mindset. So I think our group, we had a real good skate yesterday and they competed, they worked. I don't know if I mentioned to you, but they wanted to skate tomorrow or yesterday, right? So that said a lot. So they set themselves in the right mindset.
Now that's more like it. Judd's Hockey Show reacting to a 5-2 Wild victory at the X tonight over the New York Rangers, Zolgad and Declan Goff on a late night edition. And Dex, let's start with the fact that, I don't know if it was the low point came on Sunday or a good hard practice Monday helped. Mm-hmm. But the reality is this. We saw a team, and it's a cliche word, but I think it applies here, that tonight had its swagger back. They had their swagger back. And I can tell you right now, pretty much definitively, I think for the past 7 games, and certainly on Sunday against Dallas, this team, call them fragile, call them whatever word you choose to call them, they had no swagger, and they looked like they were waiting for something to go wrong. And I will say, tonight, I think the key point was it's 2-0 Wild into the second period. And then the Rangers score a goal. Okay, no problem, 2-1. Then the Rangers get a short-handed goal by Zibanejad, which comes on a play in which he either lifted Zuccarello's stick. It might have been a trip. It might not have been. But the reality is short-handed goal, 2-2, and you think, oh boy, here we go again. Because this is not a bad team. Like the Rangers are a good team. And the Wild comes right back, scores on the power play, which I believe in their past 7 games entering tonight during a stretch that was absolutely terrible, they were 1 for 20 on the power play. They score then, they score twice more. And I really thought the swagger and resilience, and there's no excuse for why it disappeared, but it did appear to be back tonight. Might start in goal. I don't know exactly. Might start with the Ek line being full strength, because that line certainly seems to create a tone. Whatever it is, though, what we saw tonight is much more a semblance of what this team is than the absolute, really, for the most part, garbage that we saw for the past 7 games before tonight.
I looked at you tonight. We were both at the Erikkson Energy Center. Got to watch this
side by side.
Press box. Side by side. Actually, it was weird. So,
Sports Sun,
not that anyone gives a flying rip about this, but typically I am on Judd's right, and tonight I was on Judd's left in the press box.
He's accurate, yes.
So, and I'm not a superstitious guy, but I am a little stitious because I have some Michael Scott in me, and we might have to keep that order. I told you this is going to be a one-time thing.
I'd like to
keep that order. Might have to keep that order.
I'd like to keep that order.
I sat down next to you tonight, and I said, you know what? I don't know why. And we're going to talk to Mr. Puck, Patrick Royce, who accurately and brilliantly predicted a 5-2 win before the puck even dropped.
Very frightening.
I looked at you today, and I said, you know what? I have this feeling that I think we're going to get a good Cam Talbot tonight. They're going to get a good version of Cam Talbot.
You 100% said that.
And they got a good version of Cam Talbot. I really thought so. I thought everything started from there. I mean, look, Zuccarello gets hooked, stick lifted. I personally think it's a stick lift, but he gets hog-tied down. Mika Zibanejad's one of the obviously best to do it in the game. I love watching him, and he scores an easy goal. Panarin sets up a beautiful pass and feed. Talbot has no chance. Not many goaltenders have any chances on those 2 goals. Outside of that, he did not shipwreck you tonight. I thought that was how you needed a goaltender to perform. It wasn't, I don't think it was like a superb, mind-blowing performance from Talbot tonight. I don't think either myself or anyone who really watched that game said, man, did you guys see the saves Talbot was making tonight? It wasn't. It was just a simple, clean game. I think they're going to get a good Cam Talbot tonight. They got a good Cam Talbot tonight. And then their secondary scoring. I don't know if I should have asked Marcus and Joel Eriksson, who were both at the podium side by side together, speaking of being on rights and lefts in the postgame. I told you guys in the pie chart of blame, which you found right here in this YouTube channel. I said, where's the secondary scoring been? Marcus Foligno, 1 goal in his last 12 games coming in tonight, a -8. Joel Eriksson, he's been dried up and hog-tied as well. Where's your secondary scoring? When are you going to get it? Well, those 2 guys had a big night tonight. And was that Jordan Greenway coming back to it? having a little bit more influence, maybe, sure. But it felt like the old Wild tonight. It felt like, can we get average goaltending? Check. Can we get secondary scoring? Check. Can we get a power play goal here and there? Check. Can we get a highlight reel goal from one of our superstar players in Kevin Fiala? Check.
Right.
It felt more like the team that we saw in the first few months of the season tonight with their win over New York.
Yes, absolutely did. And on Talbot, I tend to agree. It's not that he played this great game. In fact, I'm going to check out the statistical page here.
Go for it.
He had he allowed 2 goals on 25 shots. So good, but it was the fact that he and this entire team looked confident again. And I can't tell you how frustrating, and this is why the whole post-game tone on Sunday of, well, we're fragile right now. You can't be fragile. This is National Hockey League. The playoffs are coming. This is no time to decide, oh, no, what are we going to do? And I thought Talbot, I thought the defensive core, and the lines tonight look confident. I think now in his past 4 games, Hartman, who scored the Wild's first goal at 10:38 of the first period, he's got 4 goals in his past 4 games. I believe in the previous 8 games before that stretch, 0. And he looked terrible. And he's come back now. That helps, obviously, Kaprizov and Zuccarello, who I don't think looked terrible, but they didn't look as good. But now that line appears to be back to playing a confident brand of hockey. The Boldy, so let's see tonight. So the power play goal that broke the 2-2 tie was a beautiful play in which Foligno got the puck to Boldy, who made a great play to set up your guy, Fiala. All of these things look like they gelled. And yes, Greenway's back. He's not the answer, but it definitely helps. Dumba's been back now for 2 games. That definitely helps. But this is the team that you watch and think to yourself, Dex, 1, should most definitely be in the playoffs, and 2, might have a fighting chance. Now, can this continue? I don't know. Do I still have genuine concerns? Absolutely. I've got concerns in goal still.
Yep.
I've got concerns on the blue line. The faceoffs improved, correct? I believe and there was quite a bit of talk with the players and Dean in the postgame about the fact that they worked and had a very physical practice on Monday and worked on the faceoffs. If that's what it takes, that's great. Part of that too, and this is the dirty secret, because when it works, it's fine. Dean's broached this before. Part of the dirty secret of the face-off problems is the forwards, the wingers, have to get in there and go get the puck. Because it's not like
just
a jump ball in basketball, right?
Right.
Where it's you won the jump ball and now your teammate has the ball. This is hockey. You literally have to have guys like Boldy, Foligno, Greenway, Zuccarello get in there and get the puck. So, because how many draws would you estimate a game are, 50-50? Like, you sort of win the draw, but it's not clean. So if you have guys who are willing to play a physical style and go hit, that's going to give you an advantage and help on faceoffs. The point being is there were just a lot of elements tonight against a pretty good team that felt like they fell into place. And my God, I mean, even when they won in Philadelphia, which is a terrible team, I believe it was last Thursday, it still didn't look good. This tonight, I thought, for the most part, looked really good.
Yeah, and you got to remember, the Wild,
Tyson.
we talked about this at the beginning of the part, and Tyson brings up
Tyson's
a good point
comments
here.
are really
Thank
good
God that Shurskin wasn't in net.
I was
going
gonna
to
broach
a battle. I mean, this could have been a completely different game.
Gorgiev's not very good.
If Gorgiev
but that's
wasn't in
fine.
net.
The
So
Wild
that's
deserved
okay,
a break.
take it. But they deserved the break, and off the top, from your point of, it was a 2-0 game. The Wild had a great first period. I mean, just a dominant first period that they've been looking to have for a long, long time, right? And they blow a 2-0 lead. And I kind of agree with Fiala, who said at the postgame, like, there wasn't nerves when they blew the 2-0 lead, because it didn't feel like it, right? Because they give up that fluky, weird goal from Zibanejad, and then Panarin just sets up an amazing play to make it 2-2. But there definitely probably was a fraction of this fan base that thought, oh my God, here we go. You blow a 2-0 lead after a dominant 20 minutes of play. Now all of a sudden things are tied up. You go against one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. Here we go. This is how this ship wrecks, and we're out of control. No, New York didn't score again. New York did not score again for the rest of the game. You score 3 unanswered goals, ended up still winning this one by a score of 5-2. And that was that adversity, right?
Yes.
That the Wild were able to always overcome earlier in the part of this season. Now,
yes.
I think what you've seen is that type of success can sometimes be unsustainable over an 82-game season. The Wild have come in tonight, losing 8 of their last 10 games. They've blown leads in those games. They've lost games in which they've scored first in. They've had mostly horrendous goaltending, which has been the biggest culprit. But it very well could have gone right down the tube. Here's what I'm curious on, Judd Zulgad, and I think I already know the answer to this. They're in Detroit right on Thursday, or is it Columbus first?
I believe it's Detroit, then Columbus.
And then Columbus.
Yes.
What I don't want to have happen, and if he gets into a rhythm, great, do this and give him the chances. Even though I praised him for his solid performance tonight, don't fall in love and don't get into bad habits of just riding Cam Talbot just because it was a sound start. I would like to see him get into a rhythm for sure. Okay, so I'm not trying to say you have to keep alternating between him and Capo. I would bet Cam Talbot starts in Detroit again on Thursday. I would assume he will. Capo got pulled his last start. There isn't a lot of trust there, but don't fall in to bad habits. Detroit and Columbus, 2 teams that you should probably split these games with in terms of your goaltender rotation, right? You should probably start Capo for one of these 2 games. I'm going to guess Talbot gets the game on Thursday because he's coming off the hot hand. But don't get into a situation where you're trusting and going back to those old habits of, it's old reliable, old Cam Talbot's going to help us and bail us out. I think it's really important for them to still rotate those guys. And then we're now, Judd, 13 days from the NHL trade deadline. The latest deadline rumor being Jack McBain, the BC kid, I believe. I was getting the BCs and BUs mixed up. They actually might trade his rights away. And that could be a dangling and leverage piece for the Wild to try to get something in return. McBain had a very good season this last year at BC after kind of a mediocre one last year. And so they can use that as potential leverage for them. So I would still expect that this team explores the goaltending market. Don't just fall in love and get back into old habits with Cam Talbot and Capo Kakkonen. Still pick up the phone, still listen to those offers. This was a good win, but let's not also get too back ahead of ourselves that this is reverting and everything's back to normal either. Well,
and to Tyson's point there too, you got a huge break. If Shesterkin starts this game, he probably gives up a couple goals. So it's a different story. Georgiev this was a weird game because he made some point blank saves that were phenomenal. And I'm not talking 1, I'm talking it felt like 4, 3, 4, 5. But he also gave up some bad goals. Shesterkin, who is going, I think, at the end of the day, to be in the contention for the Hart Trophy, as MVP of the bleeping league, wouldn't have given up almost certainly the same goals. The Wild also was not called for a penalty. 0 penalties. A penalty kill that's been flat out bad of late was not tested. It was not even used. Huge break. That's great. Again, talk about things that aren't sustainable. Staying out of the box is a great idea. The odds of staying out of the box for an entire game more than once, every 3 months or 4 months or something. So yes, there are things tonight that you probably deserved breaks. You got breaks. You got your swagger back, but that does not mean things are fixed. Now, part of the problem in the conversation about the goaltending market, Dex, is this, though. Look at the teams now who are, especially in the Western Conference, because it's bunched up. If you look at the teams that are in need of goaltending, the Wild, quite possibly, the Oilers in the West.
They're probably the number 1.
But I don't think that the Oilers GM Ken Holland can punt. I think he needs to pursue a playoff spot or his job could be in jeopardy. And so, they're a goaltending mess. Toronto's got problems.
I think that's
Jack Campbell of late had been terrible. So like that's
I would,
one too.
I think Toronto's the one team that I'd be watching a lot
And
closely here
Washington's the fourth one.
because you could actually make a case Toronto and Minnesota are built very similar.
Yes,
like,
they are.
Like their
They have some of
offenses
the same
are legit.
problems.
They have, when their defense is all healthy and rolling, good defensive pairs, but their goaltending is horrendous.
And Toronto's got more talent, but they are built. They're constructed similarly.
The same. Yeah.
Yes, and so that's a problem too. So just off the top of my head, teams that need goaltending, and there's not a ton to be had, include the Wild, the Maple Leafs, the Oilers, the Capitals, and that's just 4 off the top of my head right now. So that's a problem. As far as scoreboard watching tonight, the good news is this: the Senators beat the Blues 4-1, and the best news is this one. In a game that I believe was 0-0 after 2, the Predators beat the Stars 2-1, but most importantly, they beat them 2-1, Declan, in regulation.
It's big.
And so, because this is the problem with 3-point games, right? Because you get 3-point games this time of year and it rips your heart out. So as far as the standings go right now, I'm just going to call these up and take a look at what the wild card standings are. The Wild now 69 points. Go ahead.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Very nice.
2 points behind the Blues, and in third place still now in the Central. Nashville has bumped up to being in the first wild card spot. They, though, are only 1 point behind the Wild, and Dallas is 2 points now back in the second spot. The Oilers are the first team out at 64 points. Again, the thing here is it remains jumbled. And this is where I really think, Declan, that so the Wild's going to play at Detroit on Thursday, at Columbus on Friday. They're going to come home and play the Predators, which is going to be a huge game, on Sunday. And that's going to kick off, if I'm not mistaken, then this 9-game homestand, right? And this 9-game homestand, which will essentially take you through the rest of the month of March, in my opinion, is going to decide the Wild's fate.
Can I give you?
Because they've got a chance to make hay. But look at the opponents; it's some tough games. Like it's I think something like 3 bad teams and 6 good teams. So I really believe that when the Wild starts this 9-game homestand on Sunday, by the end of the month, we're going to have a really good feel for. Not only is this for sure a playoff team, but probably just as importantly, if they are a playoff team, do we think that they have a snowball's chance in hell of making the type of run that we certainly talked about going back a month?
Can I give you a little reckless speculation in a semi-breaking news that I'm just seeing across my Twitter feed right now?
Absolutely.
All right, so one of the biggest, most NHL insiders that's most plugged in, Elliot Friedman, just posted 3 minutes ago his 32 thoughts column. 3 minutes ago.
Friedman. He's great.
So
one of my favorites.
There was some speculation and thought from our friend of the show, Michael Russo, about Shea Weber and the Wild inheriting that contract and putting it on long-term injured reserve.
And Friedman's been talking about that as well up in Canada.
Friedman brought it up on his podcast.
Yep.
The lead item, number 1 in 32 thoughts, this from Elliot Friedman.
Yep.
Quote, a lot of feedback to our podcast bit about Shea Weber's contract and whether or not it would make sense for Minnesota. The answer, according to several capologists consulted for this blog, is no. And don't expect the Wild to do it. Quote, you don't want to be in long-term injury over the cap for years to come. There's nothing good about that. And it prevents you from accruing space. It robs you of flexibility. I didn't realize you can't trade for a player on long-term injury reserve without activating him first, and that could be problematic for the roster.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There is also a question of whether or not Minnesota could pull the trigger to put together, a full roster prior to putting Weber's contract on long-term IR at the start of the season. So what seemed like a creative idea was anything but that. So I even saw some people in our comment section bringing up the Shea Weber report that Michael Russo dropped.
So it kills
also in his, and Friedman kind of putting, that's not going to happen. The idea was it could help maybe open up some things in the short term, but with the Wild having significant buyouts against your cap, why in the holy hell would you inherit something else in the long term that prevents you from doing that? So that's the only nugget I can see in here that relates to the Wild. Nothing, I believe, just in my Control F fine with the Minnesota and Wild that relates to them on the trade speculation, but I'm very curious on what the hell is going to happen. He does bring up the Jack McBain part, that he will be going to free agency this summer, and the Wild are looking for a second rounder, and a lot of eyes look slightly north where Jack's father, Andrew, played for 6 seasons of his own in his 608 NHL game career. The Jets do not have a first rounder, so Winnipeg could be a possible suitor for that Jack McBain prospect.
And yeah, so the backstory on McBain is he's a Wild draft pick. He has not signed yet, and if he's not signed by this coming draft, he is free to sign elsewhere, correct?
Correct.
And so they've got the right to trade his – they have the right, the Wild does, to trade his rights until the June draft. And I think he put up good stats. I think there's some questions about his skating. So I don't know there. But, I mean, he definitely – for a point of reference, I keep going back to this. If this team was not willing, Declan, to pull the trigger on playing Matthew Boldy in the playoffs last spring, I wouldn't expect a guy like a Jack McBain or hell, a Marco Rossi, right, to get a chance to come up and play in the playoffs. So I really think that in Bill Guerin's world, if he's going to get help, it's not going to be some college kid who steps in, that or a kid from Iowa. I think it most likely is going to be a guy who he can acquire. And then, of course, the conversation is, okay, that's great. But there is the Wild's cold stretch definitely revealed 3 needs. Center position still, no question about that. Big defenseman, no question about that. And just to be very clear, Ben is not the answer. So I know he's a bigger guy. I know he played some, but it's crystal clear now that you don't want to have to play him. And you certainly don't want to have to plug him in consistently. So big defenseman, possibly goaltender. And I really think that from what we just talked about, the goaltending market might be incredibly competitive to the point of the asking price might not be palatable.
Yeah.
Unless you thought that Marc-Andre Fleury was almost a surefire going to take you to the cup, right? Because if you thought that, you'd say, what the hell, I'll make the trade. But that list of available goaltenders, you've got possibly Flower, you've got Forsberg with the Senators. Mm-hmm. Now that I don't know if that's great shakes right there. And I'm trying to think of the guy with the Islanders.
Oh, not Varlamov.
Yes.
Yeah, Varlamov. Yes, Varlamov.
Varlamov.
Yes.
But he's got a year left on his contract as well after this year, and that's a problem too. But yeah, it's gonna be really intriguing. But there's no question that by the time we get to the deadline, which I think is at something like 2 p.m. Central on March 21st, that this team, which is going to be deep into that 9-game homestand, is going to have to prove that it deserves a trade as well. It deserves a trade. I think they will. I think they can get back on track. And I don't think a lot of the good hockey that we saw earlier this season was just a huge fluke. I really don't. So I think they're going to prove that they deserve it. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because you got that balancing act of what are you going to give up against, it can help us a lot, but I don't think Bill Guerin, and I continue to say this, I don't think he's going to make a dumb trade for the sake of, oh my God, I got to get help. So I'm really curious to see where things land. I'm just glad that they played a decent game tonight.
Yeah, hey, starters, they won the game and they got back on track against a good team. Hell, can we go to the Metro? They're 10-0 against the Metro. They haven't lost a single game.
Metropolitan Division's got some good teams. Now, have they because that's right, they beat Pittsburgh, which I believe is in the Metropolitan, because they came back in Pittsburgh. And if I'm not mistaken too, they get Pittsburgh then here. It might be towards the tail end of the 9-game homestand. So I'm looking at the Metropolitan Division right now. Carolina, who they just beat here.
Yep.
The Rangers, Pittsburgh, Washington, Columbus, Islanders, Devils, and the Philadelphia Flyers.
Yeah, 10-0, baby. They
That's
played 10
very
games,
impressive.
20 points right there.
That's very
Take
impressive.
that, baby. Take that.
All right, final thoughts before we sign off for the night, Declan Goff.
Yeah, I'm just impressed that they got a win, and you know what? What's more impressive is when I'm sitting next to Judd and I see all that press box food, those nachos that are hanging out there. He doesn't eat them because you know why? He's looking so damn skinny on his Livia diet.
That's exactly right. And that is, as Declan just said, thanks to my friends at Livia Weight Control Centers. And the important words there, ladies and gentlemen, is Livia Weight Control Centers. Weight Control Centers. It's not a fad diet. It's not a diet place. It's not a place where you go for 4 to 6 months and you lose the weight and they turn you loose and say, congratulations, now go back to your previous bad habits.
No.
Because it's a weight control center, guess what? They help you get the weight off. And then the most important thing, because I've been up and down my entire life, the most important thing is they help you keep that weight off. I'm down 30 plus pounds, and I want you to join me now in the I Did It 8-week challenge where you get your first 8 weeks for free. That's exactly right. I lost 26 pounds. Imagine losing 26 pounds for free. And then the good stuff's just starting because your clothes fit. It's fantastic. 855-GO-LIVEA, Livia.com, Livea.com. Give them a call or check them out online. First 8 weeks for free. And Declan, the great thing is this too. The weight's come off. I'm feeling good.
Right.
I'm looking pretty good.
Damn right.
And most importantly, my clothes fit great now. That includes my Chill Boys. My Chill Boys long johns, my Chill Boys boxers, they fit good. And Declan, I believe you told me at one point, Judd, I'm not really a boxers guy.
I was a big briefs guy.
Briefs guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me how Chill Boys has changed your approach to your undergarments, which, as we all know, guys, is a big deal.
It's a very important thing because you're very set in your ways as
really
a man down there, and you really like what you like, and you don't like what you don't like. Until you try on the pair of the bamboo fabric of these hybrid, it's we talk about centers
like
being wings and wings being centers, two-way game. That's what the hybrid pair of Chill Boys feels like with the bamboo fabric. It's a Minnesota-based company. Tell them you mentioned Score North, and we'll love to hear that because they have been a godsend to Judd Zulgad, Phil Mackey, and myself.
And plus, it helps us.
I don't wear any other underwear anymore. I don't wear any other underwear but Chill
remarkable.
Boys.
It's remarkable.
It is our favorite pair of underwear. It's a two-way game, 200-foot game. We love our Chill Boys. Performance brand, bamboo fabric. It does not matter because we support them all.
It's freeing. Let's be honest about it. It's freeing, and there's nothing better than freeing, in my opinion, when it comes to my underwear. All right, we're done. Back tomorrow with Mackie and Judd. Write that down.
I wonder if the Hockey Whisperer might have a take or two.
Well, no. We got to
Mr.
talk.
Puck. Mr. Puck.
Patrick
Mr.
Royce
Puck
will
for
join us
sure,
tomorrow.
who accurately predicted the final score tonight before the puck even dropped, 5-2.
We both saw that tweet. I want to say it was because you got to the X around 6:10.
Oh no, I got there late. I got there about 6:50.
6:30. Okay,
I got there late.
Whatever. You saw the score that Mr. Puck, Patrick Royce, predicted, and it came true. Fantastic stuff. We will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching. Judd's
Hit the subscribe button for daily Minnesota sports entertainment, and finally we can play this bad boy.
Listen, you guys know what this is all about, right? Right? What's it all about? Spurgey?
Hard work and having fun.
That. This is about winning.